Hi, 7th grade, Mr. Bestel here. I know we've been doing a lot of Amplify, but I actually wanted to take a quick break from that and start mixing in some of my old non-Amplify stuff. So today I'm going to tell you about fossils. This is a bit more lecture-based, and there's just a short assignment at the end of it. So, just something to think about before we start. How does a fossil form? I know you had this question yesterday, but how does a fossil form? So, the definition of a fossil includes a lot more than you think. Most people, when they think of fossils, they think of bones in the ground, but it's a lot more than that. So, the definition of fossil is any remains, traces, or imprints of prehistoric organisms. And prehistoric means that it was a long time ago. So if you have a squirrel die and you see its imprint in the ground, that's not a fossil because it's not prehistoric. So, which of these two things are more likely to make a fossil? A dinosaur bone or a dinosaur eye? Obviously, it's the bone, but why? So, fossils actually form very rarely. They don't form often, but they are more likely to form if with hard materials, such as bone, or when an organism is buried quickly. And the reason for these, I can go a little bit into it. If something is harder, it's less likely to decompose underground. And for this one, if it's buried quickly, it's not really exposed to the weather, exposed to bacteria and bugs that can eat it. So a lot of times dinosaur fossils happen during like a landslide, or if a dinosaur fell into a tar pit or something like that, then it couldn't get decomposed by bacteria. And its bones are more likely to survive rather than its eyes, which could be like decomposed. This relates to our previous unit that we just did. So I'll ask you a question and you think about it. Which type of rock do you think forms the best fossils? Igneous rock, sedimentary rock, or metamorphic rock? Which one can you find fossils in, basically? Let's use process of elimination. We know that igneous forms from cooled magma, so I don't see how a fossil would form in there. If there's a dinosaur bone, let's say, in lava or magma, it's just going to melt. For metamorphic, there's too much heat and pressure here, so that can destroy fossils. The heat and the pressure that's required to form metamorphic rock. But all fossils are formed in sedimentary rock. And we'll go a bit more into that. Basically, little rocks can fill in and around the fossil sediment, and eventually can turn into sedimentary rock. So, the first type of fossil is the one you think of typically, which is mineral replacement fossils. Basically, when you're looking at dinosaur bones in the Museum of Natural History, they're not the actual bones that the dinosaurs had. Mind blown. Basically what happens, let's say in the case of a T-Rex skull will be quickly buried, let's say, and the rest of the body decomposes. The skin, the flesh decomposes, usually. But the bones slowly decay. But as they decay, the little holes that are formed are filled in with sediment. Whatever sediment is around. So basically what you're seeing here is not the bones of the dinosaur, but the sediment that filled into the dinosaur bones, which you may not have known before. This is a specimen in the Museum of Natural History. It's actually like, it has a 3-foot diameter. It's really cool. This is a rainbow ammonite. So the ammonite died, but it was filled in with a rainbow mineral, which is why we call this mineral replacement fossil. So there's the T-Rex skull. Mineral replacement. Okay, let's go to the next one. Mold and cast. So this is when there's a living thing, and its shape is left in sediment. So if the shape is imprinted one way, it's called a mold. That means it kind of goes into the rock, the shape. The shaped cavity or hole left when an organism decays. But then there's also a cast, so if you have an empty shape, it can get filled in with sediment, and we call that a cast. This is also, mold and cast is also a term used in sculpture when like you make a shape and then you want to copy that shape over and over. Mold and cast. Still in sediment. Okay, this one's cool. If you've ever seen Jurassic Park, we know that prehistoric mosquitoes can get trapped in amber. But the third type of fossil is called original remains. That means that it's not rock. It's the actual cells of the organism that survived. So I'll go through these 3 examples. This is a prehistoric mosquito stuck in amber. In Jurassic Park, they said that they can take DNA from that, but that probably wouldn't happen with dinosaurs because DNA starts degrading after about 10,000 years. It quickly degrades. So after millions of years, there's no DNA left. So we can't really make DNA from the blood inside these ancient mosquitoes. This is a mammoth that was frozen in ice, and that's how its skin and its tissue survived. So actually, we will probably be able to clone mammoths because they were only, around 20,000 years ago. And similarly, this was a prehistoric girl. I think she was around 12, and she was left on top of a cold mountain as a sacrifice because she's a young girl, sadly. And she was frozen, so we can study this girl. I'm not exactly sure how long ago that was. I think it was at least a few thousand years ago, at least. Original remains. And we might be able to get her DNA too. Last type, trace fossils. So footprints. Footprints, tracks, burrows underground, dinosaur feces. Anything that's not the actual organism's body is a trace fossil. Any sign of how it traveled, basically, is a trace fossil. So what can we learn? We can learn the weight of the dinosaur based on how far it sinks in the ground. We can learn if it traveled alone or in herds. We can learn how fast it could run. We could learn what it ate if we look at the feces. Lots of stuff we can learn from trace fossils. So let me give you a quick quiz here. I will show you a picture. You tell me the type of fossil. You have 4 choices. So which type of fossil is this? That's right, it's mineral replacement, because the bones of the saber-tooth were filled in with sediment. Which type of fossil is this? That's right, it's original remains. That's a mammoth baby. And its skin and tissue survived. What type of fossil is this? That's right, it's a trace fossil, because it's a footprint. of a very big dinosaur? What type of fossil is this? That's right, it's a mold and cast because it's an imprint in the rock. What type of fossil is this? Also looks like a mold and cast. Or one is a mold and one is a cast. This is a fossil leaf, so it doesn't have to be an animal. What type of fossil is this? That's right, original remains. This looks like a wasp, actually. Prehistoric wasp. What type of fossil is this? This is a mold and cast Ammonite. What type of fossil is this? Kind of looks like a pterodactyl. This is probably a combination of mineral replacement, if its bones are actually there, and also probably it has some imprint, so probably a mold and cast as well. So in school, we'll see if we can try this next year. We put stuff in plaster of Paris and we try to make the 4 types of fossils. But I don't expect you guys to have plaster of Paris at home. So maybe we'll save that for next year. Basically what I want you to do is give me examples of the 4 types, just to show that you understand the 4 types of fossils, and probably also how they form. Thanks. Hope you learned something today.